So we are so happy that you decided to join us here for this webinar on Project Management 101. It's really our essentials to help you if maybe you're a new project manager or you're looking to get into project management. And we've got some other classes that we'll talk to you later about this that continues with this track. My name is Denise Morris. I am a training specialist here at Knack Training, and I am a former middle school teacher. And teaching, project manager, mom of three, like they're all pretty much the same role, keeping people on task within their budget and timeline. And so when I left teaching, I thought, let me look into some of these different methodologies. And I really found a home in Agile. And so we're going to briefly talk about that today as well. But just kind of sit back, and if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. Our wonderful producer, Drew, is going to be looking over those, and I will gladly answer as many as I can at the end. So let's get started. All right. Just like I mentioned, questions there at the end, or if you think of something later, you can always send us a follow-up question at help@Knack Training. I'm also going to show you the references that we are supplying with this training. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it to show you. And these are here for you on our Notion page. And here is the webinar guide with information from the presentation today. And here is some different templates that I'm going to show you. So you can just click on them and you can download the file. I'm going to put that link also in the chat, so you have that available to you. And here at Knack, we really want to help you as much as possible. So if you attend this and you think it's wonderful, thank you. And you will have these resources available for you. And if you ever, for some reason, can't find them or have lost them, just feel free to email us and we will get you whatever you need. All right, so for today's roadmap, let's just kind of go over what we're going to discuss. We're going to just talk about the very basics of project management. There are 10 knowledge management areas that we're going to discuss today. The 5 project management phases. Now, this is traditional project management. This is a project management lifecycle. And then I'm just going to show you some really popular tools that would make you as a project manager super successful. So what I really would love for you guys to get from this is to be able to define the structure of the project management cycle. We're going to review 2 of the popular methodologies for project management, Waterfall and Agile. And then we're also just going to look at some popular work management tools in software. Now, this is a project management essentials class, so I'm just going to take us through a couple terms that you may not be familiar with. So our first one is the triad of constraints. So we have a triangle here, and it has the most typical 3 constraints within projects across the world, not even depending on what industry you are. You are bound by time, cost, and scope. So your timeline, your schedule, how much money you have, and then your scope. You're going to hear this word frequently today. Scope is essentially that work that needs to be completed for your product or deliverables to reach what the stakeholders are asking for. So triad of constraints, it's going to pop back up later, and we're going to delve a little bit deeper into it. Next are these 10 knowledge management areas. Yes, 10, quite a bit. So just have a little look at the screen. We have integration, scope, time, cost, quality, human resources, communication, risk, procurement, and stakeholders. And some of y'all might be like, how? I wouldn't even be thinking about human resources with project management, but these are all integral areas that need to be managed to make your project run as smoothly as possible. Ah, yes, dependencies. So not that sweet, adorable child on your taxes, but much like a dependency, this is something that is a task that relies on the completion of a different task. So here in our example, we have a Miro board, and you can see that there are different teams. We have team A, B, C, and D. And we have a nice little key that lets us know what these different pictures mean. So green is a task. That salmon colored one is a dependency. And then yellow would be a milestone. So what we're all working towards. And then the white would be a feature or an enabler that they're working on. So you can see team B completely needs to finish these two tasks before team A can even get started. So you're waiting on other people to complete their work so that you can then begin your work. And you can see that they both go to this user authentication feature. All right, and then scope. So I said you'd hear this quite frequently. There's a lot that goes into scope. I did tell you that it's that work that needs to be performed so that whatever product, deliverable, service that you're working on is meeting those specified functions and features that the stakeholders have asked for. So when you look at your project scope, all of these things go into it. The goals for it, the deliverables, what are we making? Budget, once again, how much money? Your schedule, it may be fixed, it may be flexible. The stakeholders, okay, client engagement, and then your resources. What resources do you have available? Do you need to gather any other resources for this project to be successful? All right, and then our last word to know is the ITTO, which is the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. It's a framework used in project management, and essentially it shows how all of these different areas are connected and how resources and information and people are used to complete a project. You can see an input. Those would be things like a project charter, a management plan, other documents, accepting deliverables from the stakeholders. And then in the middle, we have tools and techniques. Those are your experts, your subject matters, people that are helping you or your team members, analyzing data, and then meetings. And lastly is our outputs column, and that would be project document updates, once again, accepting deliverables, a postmortem, and a retrospective or a review at the end. So while we go through the webinar, I'll show you what part in like a planning phase or monitoring phase this would fall on the framework. What is project management? It is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques. Now, this knowledge is coming typically from people, okay, as well as the skills. The tools we've talked about briefly, those are different work management softwares that can help you, and then your technique. What methodology are you going to use to run your project? So you apply all of these to complete a successful project. That's what we want. We want to start strong and we want to finish strong with a successful project that keeps the stakeholders happy with the results and to give our team a boost because we have completed a successful project. All right, so we talked about what it is. Now let's talk about why is project management important. So got some lovely data here, some percentages. So if you look at it, it says that 32% of projects fail due to poor management. Now, is that because they simply don't have a project manager? Or maybe their project manager is doing multiple jobs? Sometimes you get voluntold into different positions. Or are they not following the life cycle of a project? 68% of projects fail to meet deadlines, budgets, or goals. So I showed you that triad of constraints, and those are very much on that triad. So if 68% of projects are not meeting those three things, or even one of those things, that is something that definitely needs to be looked at. But on the flip side, 97% of businesses recognize that project management is essential for them to be successful. So, and then as someone who is married to somebody in IT, I found it very interesting that 45% of large IT projects run over budget on average. He was not as surprised. So all of these show why putting a project manager and project management tools in place will help your business be successful and grow revenue and be known for getting things done. All right, so we talked about the what, the why. Let's talk about the important person, the who, the project manager. People sitting in here right now. So we have our wonderful project discovery right here. We've got our project coordinator. We have our team with our senior technology lead and then our junior technicians. And then we have our QA specialist. So let's bring in Candace, our project manager. Doesn't she look so happy, guys? She loves her job. So what makes Candace such a great project manager is that she's very organized. Lists upon list upon list, okay? Whether that is a sticky note around your computer or you're actually using the application of lists from Microsoft, or maybe you go old school and you write it down. Whichever way works best for you, but being organized is a key thing for a project manager to be successful. She's also goal-oriented. Goals are a very big part of project management, and she knows to stay on task, to stay within budget, to stay in the schedule, and that is going to make her team be successful. She also is passionate. I mean, this is not the easiest of jobs, okay? You are there to help your team, to be a champion for your team, to try to get rid of any impediments that may be facing your team, but also listening to stakeholders, also understanding what they're asking. And this falls into the works well under pressure. You have humans, not robots yet, and they all have human error. They all have scheduling. They all have personal lives that can, sometimes commingle with things getting done. And so working well under pressure, keeping her team on track, and within all of those constraints makes her a great project manager. She can provide leadership. Like I mentioned, she's a champion for her team. She has soft skills, okay? She treats people like people, and she can, listen and not always be a talker. She can also be a listener and learn. And lastly, she's just knowledgeable. She knows what needs to be done within the project. She knows what she herself has to do, what she is responsible for. All right, so we talked about what it is, why it's important, and then what the role of a project manager is on the basic foundation level. So let's look at some key project management concepts. So we keep using the word project. We're just throwing it out there. So in the business world, in project management, what exactly makes it a project and not something that would be like an operation for your business? So it needs to be temporary. It needs to have a start and end date. Okay, and hopefully you finish it within that time frame. It needs to be unique. Okay, if you're building a house, that's great. You built that house, it's wonderful, but then you build another house. Is it the exact same? No, it's different. It's on a new lot. Okay, so it's unique to this goals and specific, needs that the stakeholder is asking for. And then lastly, you're going to need to allocate resources for this project, whether you have those resources or you need to go speak to a project sponsor to help you get those. So temporary, unique, specific, and needs resources. So projects can sometimes be confused with operations. So I just wanted to give you a little bit more information into that. So the project here, we have a software development project to create a new mobile app. It's temporary, it's unique, it has a specific goal, and it's going to need resources. The operational side of that is now you have to maintain the infrastructure to support the mobile app. Operations are those day-to-day repetitive tasks that keep the lights on, okay, that keeps up our status quo as the business. Another example of a project would be organizing the marketing campaign for a new product launch. Okay, it's that great time of year, right? There's lots of things coming out. And so therefore, once those products are then sent to these different retail stores, you're going to then need to manage the product supply chain, operations, day to day. Our last project example would be leading a construction project to build a new office building. So the building is done. It has passed all its inspections. The keys have been handed over. Now the operation would be running the daily building services, maybe from janitorial to building maintenance to cafeteria workers if they're on premise. So project would be temporary, operations day to day. Here we go. That triangle should pop back up. So I said we would talk a little bit more about the triad of constraints. So your time is your schedule. And I mentioned briefly that sometimes schedules can be fixed. Okay, they have this is when it needs to be done. And sometimes they're a little bit more flexible, depending typically on your methodology that you've chosen. Cost, budget. Nobody wants to hear, we're going to need some more money for that. Okay. And then your scope, those are the different goals that you've set aside that you said, this is what needs to get done. This is within our scope. Okay, that is not within our scope. We can't work on that right now. We need to finish this. We need to get this done. And why they really are combined together is you cannot change one without affecting one or both of the others. So that's when you kind of get into a bit of a pickle when you can't, if one's messing up, the others might follow suit. All right, our 10 knowledge management areas. So we could talk for hours upon each of these. So we're just going to pick 3 today to talk about. In your guide that I showed you, there is more information on each area. All right, so the first one is going to be integration. So it is the most crucial in project management. It is the one that aligns all the other areas to a common goal. It keeps them all together like it's a giant puzzle when all the pieces are there. But so if you're behind schedule on a project, you can either go over budget or you can finish the project late. That triad of constraints we talked about. So assessing these situations and making decisions around them is the key part of project integration management. So why is this beneficial to you as a project manager? Because this is going to facilitate that coordination of all of the project components. It ensures that your team members are all on the same plan, which is then going to provide a more efficient and smoother workflow for your project. So the whole big picture, it brings them all together, integration. Time. Whew, man, if I could have more time, that would be great, especially in the morning when I'm trying to get 3 lunches made and kids, are running around being crazy. Also, as a project manager. So we've already mentioned that your team is made up of humans, okay? And some of those team members are very optimistic about what and how much work they can get done in a certain amount of time. Others may be very cautious and they're going to overestimate their time. So as the project manager, you're going to have to look at these issues and manage that to adjust the tasks, allocate resources, and maintain control when challenges arise. What could possibly arise? What could happen? Let's talk about it. So obviously, someone might go on vacation. Wonderful. I love a good beach vacation. It happens. Someone got sick. Keep your stomach bug at home. I do not want that in the office. Someone left the company. They packed up all their stuff. They're traveling the world in a van. Great for them. You're waiting on a dependency, that task that needs to be completed from another team. So that would definitely be a challenge. I don't know, global pandemic, anyone? That was definitely a challenge that arose. So time management is very beneficial to you as a project manager because it ensures that your project stays on track, okay, with its original deadlines and schedules. So it's going to allow for a smoother and more timely project completion. All right, so let's talk about our last management area today, which is communication. I love good communication. So, how often have you encountered the request to just keep me informed? Keep me in the loop. Let me know what's happening. Which is a fairly, easy request, but even sometimes things fall through the cracks, and essential stakeholders might not always be included when these changes occur. So I would say the best thing about communication is consistency. Okay, say it with me, y'all. Communication is consistency. So whether you're communicating with your team or your stakeholders, so a great way for communication would be like to send out a weekly update to management with, progress reports about the process of your project. There are some really great things where you can use Power Automate to make an email sent out to your team every Monday, letting them know what still needs to be finished, so they can keep on top of what they need to complete as well. And then maybe if you are following like a Scrum or Agile methodology, you might be having your daily stand-ups, your meetings that you have every day, or a sprint review, which is at the end where you show your different deliverable to the stakeholders. Obviously, there's a plethora of tools that are useful to you to communicate. There's chats, there are file sharing opportunities, and sometimes a good old-fashioned email will do what you need it to get done. So why is this beneficial to you as a project manager? It's very crucial on significant projects to ensure that all of the parties are notified when there's a change, when there's a new development, if a challenge is happening that might, lead to issues in the budget or the schedule. We've talked about the knowledge management areas. Now we're going to look into some management methodologies. There are a handful of different ones, but most often people like to discuss Waterfall versus Agile. So just think about, maybe is your company currently using one of those? Are you intrigued by one? So it's the tale as old as time, guys. Waterfall versus Agile. Which one's better? Which one should we use? Can we use both? Yeah, totally. You can do a hybrid. You can do whatever is best for your team members and for your project. So let's look at Waterfall first. So this is the traditional methodology used in project management. Development is sequential. Okay, there's a lot of planning done up front. You meet with your stakeholder, you discuss all the facts, and you get everything out of the way. All the nooks and crannies. And then your team then does these different tasks in a sequential order. It's linear, it's step by step. Okay, there is a clear scope and a predictable timeline. This would be great for infrastructure projects, like building a bridge. You're going to get all that information out of the way before you start building the bridge. You're not going to be halfway building and be like, maybe we should go ask these stakeholders if they really wanted to use these materials when you've already built half of it. That's just not going to be good business. The progress for Waterfall is stage by stage. So you complete it in a stage, you show the stakeholders, they accept it, you move on. Quality, the testing is really done at the end of the project. That's different in some other methodologies. You talk to your stakeholders at the beginning, but your feedback really is going to be at the end of the deployment. Now, there will be check-ins with stakeholders, especially as the project manager, but the main discussion is going to happen and feedback at the end. And then your teamwork is moderate. There's a lot of autonomy and people working on their own tasks when needed. A great example for Waterfall, it makes me think of when we built our house. Something I said I would never do, but here we are. It was a daunting task, but for sure a sequential process. You can't put the roof on before you've put the walls up. So looking at Waterfall, you can look at it as the requirement. We had another baby. The house seemed too small. The pandemic was happening. We needed office. I was a teacher at the time. And it was like, we need a new house. And I want a house that has this many bedrooms in it and this many bathrooms. I have twin daughters. I mean, the teenage years, guys. I know it's coming for me. So in the requirement phase, I'm going to identify all my requirements for my dream house. Okay. Do I want a home theater? Do I want a swimming pool? What do I want do I want it to be made out of brick or stucco? Might even ask your stakeholders, your, tiny roommates that live with you. What would you like? Oh, that's interesting. That can't happen, but that's a great idea. Okay, so once we have all of these different ideas, we're then going to find somebody to build our house and design it. So you're going to look at floor plans, elevations. I live in Texas where hurricanes are prevalent. Elevation is key. And then all those detailed specifications for materials and finishes. And then you're going to check it, final plan, let's get this going, which brings us into our implementation stage or the construction phase. So they're building the house. Okay, they are progressing through. We've got a foundation, we've got walls, we've got, drywall. Okay. Then you go into the testing phase. So you're going to walk through and look at it. I lived close to my new house, so I stalked it every day and was like, look, we have walls today. It was like the most exciting thing ever. And you're just going to ensure quality. You're going to look around. And if you see something you don't like, you're going to let your builder know. You're going to identify any issues in this testing. Then we have our deployment or our delivery. Okay, construction's complete. We've done our final walkthrough. We've signed our life away. We have the beautiful new keys and we have moved in. What could be better than being new homeowners? Then you remember your new homeowner and what all goes with that, which is maintenance. Okay, you got to get that AC checked. Okay, you've got to wrap your pipes when a freeze is coming. These are all things that, you don't necessarily think about when you think about building a house, but they come with it and you have to maintain it because you've spent a lot of time and money and work on it and you want it to last. Easiest way for me to think about Waterfall is thinking about building a house. It is sequential. It is linear. You're not going to build your bathroom and then be like, no, we need to change this again. No, the bathroom is built. We're not going to do major changes to it. Now we get to move into Agile. This is my favorite methodology because I do fall into the Agile Scrum area with my expertise. And so what I like about Agile is that it is continuous development over multiple cycles or sprints compared to Waterfall, which is, it's very rigid. It has to go phase after phase. Also with Agile, it is very people-driven team, and it really encompasses that cross-functionality and working together. And there is frequent stakeholder engagement in Agile. So looking at our diagram here, we have this backlog. So the backlog is the list of tasks that need to be completed before the deliverable would be finished. And there is a product owner for Agile, and they're in charge of that backlog, and they're doing a hierarchy. Well, this needs to be completed before this can be completed. So they take a couple of them off the backlog and they put them in for the sprint. So sprints are typically 2 to 4 weeks where you would go through this whole process. So the tasks are put in, the team analyzes, they define any goals, then they get down and they do the work, they design it, they test it, and then they will deploy it. So this is where a MVP comes in, and a minimum viable product, meaning that you're not going to build a whole house right now. Okay, you're going to build the foundation and the walls, and then you're going to show that to your stakeholder. And then if they have any improvements, they have anything, you're going to fix that then. And then you'll move more stuff off your backlog and continue until that house is built completely. So with Waterfall, you could be working and, after a year, you have version 1 out. Okay. With Agile, you could be working and after 3 months, you might have version 1 out. After another 3 months, version 2. So it's not completely done necessarily, but it's going to be meeting those stakeholder expectations at that point in time. So just looking at some case studies for Agile, Google and Spotify both qualify under that Agile mentality. So Google was started in 1996 as a research project, and it evolved into the most widely used search engine. I mean, the amount of times I use Google a day it might be criminal. And it has over 8.5 billion daily searches. I think maybe 8 billion are mine. I don't know. You just have to look things up a lot. But the way that this falls under Google or under Agile, excuse me, it has that iterative development. Okay, you're not getting Google, 1 and Google 2. They listen to their users. And then obviously as time changes, they continue to change what they are doing as a company and what they're producing with their product. Spotify, it too follows that. It has evolved its business model. Okay, it started out as a streaming platform, and now you can get a podcast, you can get videos, going on a road trip. Spotify is there for you. Let's make you a personalized list. Hey, just like those mixed CDs I used to make in college. You never knew what you were going to get on one of those. But that too is developed with the adaptability of Agile and the response to change. It's iterative, okay? This worked. Now we can add this, we can go back, we can listen to our users and, change and fix what they want. I mean, people love to compare Waterfall and Agile. There's honestly quite a little bit of a debate about when to use them and what they're, best for. I kind of mentioned Waterfall is great for infrastructure. Agile is great for software development and areas where there's flexibility. So with Waterfall, there's that clear roadmap until project completion. All that documentation up there in the forefront, making sure all the I's are dotted and the T's, everything's good. Agile, you really have a clear map through that first MVP, that minimum viable product, okay? You're building the foundation, you're building the walls. We're not building the whole house right now. In Waterfall, the project manager holds authority over the project. In Agile, there are multiple roles that would be similar to a project manager. Some teams do have project managers, depending on if you're doing scaled Agile, or if you're doing Scrum or Kanban, you're most likely having, that Scrum Master, okay, product owner. Those are an Agile coach. Those are all similar roles that will help lead the team with a servant leadership and, help be that champion that we need to be. And the Agile team is very self-organizing. It's cross-functional, bringing in different people when needed to complete the project. With Waterfall, changes only start at the beginning of the project. And then with Agile, you can pivot quickly between your sprints. They have a saying that means, fail fast. If you're going to fail, you might as well do it quickly so that you can get back up and continue on. Waterfall had stakeholder meetings at progress points. And like I said, Agile has frequent meetings with their stakeholders, a lot of client engagement with Agile. So in my humble opinion, I think Agile is a winner for methodology just because it is so flexible. Now, whatever works best for your team is great. And that's what, you as a project manager is going to have to discuss and decide. But like I said, there's others out there than just Waterfall and Agile. And I mean, they can be however you need them to work for you, you can make them work. So let's talk about those 5 phases of traditional project management. And when I tell you, you can project manage just about anything in your life, you can do it. So these are our 5 phases. We have initiation, planning, executing, monitoring, and closing. So I recently had 25 people at my house for Thanksgiving. And you better believe I project managed it, okay? So last year, And then, a couple months ago, I was like, I'll do it. I'll host. Yeah. You want to bring someone? Great. Oh, you're bringing that. This is awesome. That's amazing. Okay. Yeah. I'll host. I'll get the turkey. I will get all the, plates and all that. But then I start planning and I'm like, who's bringing what? You need to bring a side. Okay. So, all right, you've got that. You've got that. Great. Okay. We're planning. So now we move into executing. I go to the store, and I have maybe went to the store more times than I should have, but you always forget the one thing, right? And we're, executing this, and we're buying all the supplies, and we're getting it ready, and we're thinking about what needs to go in the oven first. And then a great thing about a project manager is risk analysis and risk management. So my lovely niece is like, you know what? I think I'm old enough to bring something. And I was like, you know what? That's great. What do you want to bring? And she says rolls. And, I have 3 children. Rolls are like the majority of their Thanksgiving dinner. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just buy a couple rolls on the side, little bags of brown and serve. Okay. And it came in handy because her roll recipe is much more, it has a lot of bells and whistles to it. And she made less than we needed. So I already had those. So that was some great risk mitigation on my part as the Thanksgiving project manager to keep us on task. Monitoring, I monitored the food. I made sure the turkey came to temperature. I made sure things stayed warm. People helped me out in the kitchen. And then closing, all the dishes are cleaned. Thank you, husband. He's very good at that. Any leftovers are put away or taken with, people when they're leaving. And then if I came across like a really great recipe, I'm just going to remember that for next year. So super easy, right? No, but I used my skills to help me keep it on task, to keep it, with schedule, maybe not the budget necessarily, but it was able to be done. So let's look at these different phases a little bit more closely. All right, so initiation. With initiation, you have stakeholders come to you with this abstract idea, and you're like, that sounds great. Yep, I bet we can do that. So you go to your team and you're like, this is what they want to happen. Can we do this? And they're like, yeah, let's look at some goals. Most people use the SMART process to look at goals. So you take your goal and then you look at the specifics. Measurable. Is it measurable? Are there metrics or milestones? Is it currently achievable with the team we have? Do we need other personnel to help us? Is it relevant? Does this coincide and follow along with what our organization's mission and vision is currently? And then it's time bound, taking us all the way back to what a project is. It is intermediate, okay? It has a start and an end date. So you take your goals and you give them to the stakeholders and they're like, yep, that looks great. So then you complete a project charter. And the project charter is one of those different templates I showed you on the Notion page. So project charter, it helps you with your team and as the project managers to get all that information down, your name, timeline, budget, and then you give a project overview. What's your purpose? What goals you all just wrote? Any objectives, the outcomes of the project, scope, that work that needs to be finished, the deliverables, what products are you making? Are they unique? And then just an estimated schedule, any large milestones that you would want to work towards. And then your team members, who's on your team, who are your key stakeholders, any risks. I mean, it's really hard to look into your crystal ball of project management and figure out what's going to happen, but you start to learn different areas and you can think about if this might happen. Any constraints or dependencies, and then what would that criteria of success be? In Agile, it's called the definition of done. What lets us know that this project was successful and it met these different terms? If you have a sponsor, they sign it off. You as a project manager, you sign it off. So I have thrown this word stakeholders around a lot. So let's identify our stakeholders. So typically you have internal and external, and really a stakeholder is anyone that's interested in the project's outcome. So internally, your CEO, human resources, the team that's working on it. Don't forget Candace. And then you have your external stakeholders. Maybe you're working with a government entity. You need a supplier as your resources, or you are working with contractors. And essentially, at the end, your customers and users are external stakeholders because they definitely are committed to whatever that project outcome is because they're using it now. So that was phase 1, initiation. Phase 2, planning. Okay. As a project manager, you're going to now create a project management plan. Plan. Keeps us organized. And so this plan is really just looking at the charter's objective and scope, and then it's going to outline any specific elements of the project. So then you're going to define your project scope, because remember, that's the work that needs to be done. So we really need to bring that in and be more specific with each piece of that work and how it's going to be finished. And then you'll create a work breakdown structure, or a WBS. So these can look lots of different ways. This is just one example. And what that is you're taking the different tasks that need to be completed to make this deliverable successful. And you'll look at any subtasks, any dependencies. You can assign them to team members now and allocate resources, but that would typically happen in the next phase. All right, so phase 3. Oh, excuse me. So I told you that we would let you know where we're at in the input, tools, and techniques and outputs framework, and we are currently in the input. All right, phase 3 is the executing part of the phases. And task management, that's when your team has rolled up their sleeves and they're getting down to work. A great task management way to keep on top of everything is to use tools. Here's a Jira board, it could be your sprint board. It's showing you what needs to be done, what's currently in progress. You can see that it has been assigned to different individuals. Then you can discuss resources. What do you need for that? Do you need money? Do you need something to help you document it? Do you need another person to help you? Equipment, all of these things. That's in that resource allocation. And then quality control is used heavily during this phase. And that's just ensuring that all of the deliverables are meeting those quality standards and what the stakeholders had asked for. It's very much a proactive approach to work on that quality. And also, you can finish a project in time and on budget, but if it's not meeting that scope, what they asked for, then that is going to be difficult for your project to be successful. All right, phase 4 is monitoring. This is a big one for project managers. One way that you're going to monitor would be using metrics and KPIs. So metrics are just those data points looking at things when you're looking at a data analysis. And then your KPIs are your key performance indicators. And you can see here, this is a Monday dashboard, which is a tool that you can use. And it shows you the overall progress. And then it shows the different team members, where your budget is at, how much has been completed. And that's really great for the next part, which is progress reporting and communication. You're sending this information to upper management, letting them know how it's running. You might be meeting with stakeholder and letting them know where we're at with the project. And then communication. Remember, I said communication is consistency is the key to that. So continually making sure your team knows what they're doing, what they need to be doing, and how it's moving along, and everyone is still on the same page. Risk and issue management, that falls into one of those knowledge management areas. They're really proactive strategies to ensure that any unexpected events do not derail your project. You're human, you're going to do the best you can, but it's always good to think about what could be coming. In the ITTO, we would be in the tools and techniques section of the framework. All right, phase 5. closing. How many of y'all are still on an email or a chat thread about something that you worked on previously? I love teaching, and sometimes I still get text messages about different things that I created as a teacher. Guys, take me out of this text thread, okay? So what I'm really just trying to say is sometimes we don't follow through with this phase, and we're not, really having that handoff from team to stakeholders. So the best part is, you give them either in a sprint review when you're talking to stakeholders or in a meeting, and you show them, the final product, the deliverables they asked for, and they sign off. Yep, this is what we wanted. I accept that. This is great. Thank you so much. And then you, as your project manager, it's a great time to lead a post-mortem or a lessons learned. So that was that second template on our Notion page. Right here, the post-mortem template. And remember, you can download the files right here. Project name, and then it really just breaks down and kind of is like just sum it all up. So budget, how did you do on the budget? Timeline, were you within the schedule? Requirements, quality, issues that arose, any concerns? And successes, what went well, okay? What can you take from this? What lessons have you learned that you can use on your next project? And then lastly, celebrate, okay? Your team took an abstract idea and made it into a new product, a deliverable, something that users are going to use. Like, that's pretty amazing. So this puts us out in the outputs category of our framework. Our last little bit, we're going to talk about different project management tools. Let's look at these tools. If you have Microsoft, that's awesome. You can definitely use Project and Planner. They are two very different applications though. Project is very comprehensive. There's a lot going on. It is wonderful, but it's great for long projects and people that are maybe not new to project management. Now, Microsoft Planner, it's very lightweight. It's not very customizable. It is included with your Microsoft 365 subscription. So it's great for that, but two very different applications. Jira is primarily used for software development within Agile. It's one of the most common ones. Here is a sprint board that I've showed you an example of. You can see that there are 4 days left, things that need to still be done, things that are in progress, and review and done. So if there are 4 days left and you were the project manager, you'd be like, we need to get some things done. We need to work on that. You might need to manage workflow, maybe balance it out a little bit. Next, there are Asana, Smartsheet, and Monday. A lot of these are very similar, and that is amazing. And that's where it really comes into how has your team used them before? What does your budget look like? Asana is great for any size of team. Smartsheet is got that spreadsheet-like functionality. So if you love spreadsheets, Smartsheet is going to be what you're going to probably like to use. And then Monday is so customizable. I mean, I feel like you could ask it to do anything and be like, hold on a second, let me see if I can do that for you. They have lots of, key features. They definitely have lots of pros and cons. So you really have to look at it as a project manager and talk to your team. If you're looking for something that has a free plan, Jira, Asana, and Planner all do. Project, Monday, and Smartsheet, unfortunately, do not have a free plan as of right now. Highly customizable, Jira, Monday, Project, and Asana. It has lots of features that you can use to make your team be successful. Smartsheet kind of falls in that moderate. It has a few really great features to help you customize, but it also is lacking some from the other ones. And then, like I already mentioned, Planner has low customization. Still a great tool, but if you want to change colors and do different things and times, that's probably not going to be the best one for you. And then if you're looking at it from a methodology perspective, Agile, Jira, Monday, Planner, and Asana are great for Agile, and Smartsheet and Project might be better for Waterfall. Now, you can obviously make them work for what you need, but these are kind of already set up in that area. So I mentioned that, you're looking at something for budget-wise. So here's our Knack Training bang for your buck scale. As you can see, Planner is here, Asana, Jira, Monday, Smartsheet, and Project. Once again, Planner, Asana, and Jira all have free plans. And I mentioned Planner is free with your Microsoft 365 subscription. Asana, it has that basic free plan, but it also has a premium plan of $10.99. Jira is cloud, $5, so you're storing it in the cloud server, meaning that you create it and download it on your server on-prem. Is $10 per user per month, but you can only have 10 people on that server, just an FYI. Monday, basic is $8, standard is $10. Smartsheet's a little higher up, it's $14 per individual and then $25 per business. And then Project just has a standalone cost of $30 per user per month. So I am partial to Jira. I think it's got some easy to use features, especially if you're new to it. Bringing back in those knowledge management tools. So for integration, Asana, Smartsheet, and Project, they all have great at integrating project plans and various project elements to coordinate and align, which we know integration aligns all of them together. Time, Jira provides a built-in tracking features to allow project managers to monitor how much time is being spent on tasks. And then Monday also has features to enable project managers to monitor the time spent on task and generate, insightful reports. Lastly, I put communication with our Microsoft apps because they integrate so effortlessly into other Microsoft applications like Teams and Outlook and SharePoint, which are all great communication tools. So you guys are currently sitting awake, hopefully, in this Project Management Essentials course. We do have some other related classes. We have an Agile and Scrum project management one where you explore Agile, the Scrum framework. You can apply it, we'll apply it to scenarios and best tools. And then there's also using Microsoft applications for project management. And we'll look at the project and planner more closely and integrate it within the suite. So if you have liked what you've seen today, give our Director of Client Experience, Delete, an email here at delete@Knack Training, and she would love to speak with you, I am sure. But I loved talking with you guys today. And Drew, were there any questions in the Q&A?
Yeah, it looks like we have time for about one question. Sophia asks, I know Agile and Waterfall have different roles within them. What are some of the roles that would be necessary for using an Agile framework?
Okay, so I briefly mentioned you have your product owner, which meets a lot with stakeholders and also has that ownership of the backlog for the task hierarchy. Then you have a Scrum Master, and Scrum Masters are of that servant leadership mentality. Like, they are there for their team. They are there to facilitate. They are to help them in any way possible that they can. And they'll go up against, stakeholders and other people to make sure that their team has what is necessary for them. And then you have your development team, the people that are doing the work and getting, that finished. And sometimes you can even have like an Agile coach that is very similar of that Scrum Master, helping the team facilitate, keeping them on track. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I really enjoyed talking to y'all, and I hope that I have another chance to do so in the future. If you're looking for any other training series, you can go to knack.tips/register. And don't forget that link I sent in the chat about how you can get to our PDF guide and the 2 templates I showed you in class today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday.